Okay, hello. So what's your name again? Hi, Adyn. Okay, that's cool. Okay, so my name's Raewyn. Okay, so I'll just redo that again. So, hello, my name's Raewyn. I'm going to be your interviewer today. So I just want to ask you a few things. So first of all, tell me about yourself and why you're here.
Hey, well, thanks a lot for your time. It's great to be able to get out and talk to people, and the wonder of, I guess, digital things is that we can do that much easier. So I'm born and bred Whakatāne. Went to school just up there. Parents live just up there. I live just down there. Pretty normal kind of thing in this town. So you're born and raised. Was a journalist most recently for 10 years. So doing that still, but self-employed. Yep. So I wrote for the Beacon for 10 years, which was cool. But most of my growing up was pretty typical sport and whatever, kicking around town, things like that. Yeah. But love my sport. Still pretty tragic. Two boys, a 5-year-old and one just about to turn 1. So me and my wife are bringing them up in town. Had a few opportunities to leave town, but no way.
That's cool. So what do you find passionate about? What? Yeah.
So like I said, definitely still a sports tragic. Like, if I can get in front of the TV on the couch and watch some sport, I'll be doing it. But ultimately very passionate about my community. And that comes from so many different places. People that have influenced me, so that's teachers, all kinds of people. Being a member of the Fire Brigade in town too, there's just a great group of people there, very like-minded. They just want to do their bit, to try and help out. And so many people do that without being on a fire truck. We have people who do all kinds of things in town. So I'm passionate about the community because I think there's such a wonderful place. We tend to whinge a little bit about small traffic jams and things like that. But it's such a cool place. There's great people. The town itself is cool, and I think there's just so much potential here. Right from the 18-year-old to us older people. I think there's heaps of potential for the town. Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, so what is your fondest memory from the top of your head?
So most recently, definitely the birth of my sons. There's nothing like that. But like younger, a collection of things really. So again, it's just so focused on the town, like whether it was jumping off the bridge, whether it was, swimming down at the heads there, trying to catch crabs, or even just like walking to the halfway store to get milk, or those kind of things. Those memories are it's like a big collection. Obviously, again, lots of sport. I said I'm a tragic, so lots of playing sport on Saturday. So now being able to watch my own son do that, and I've done quite a bit of coaching too. Those memories are all quite fond to me. Yeah, but if I had to pick one, definitely the birth of my boys. Yeah.
So cool. Okay, so who is someone that you admire or look up to?
Okay, when I read this question, this is just so easy. It's 100% my parents. So my mum and dad just built such an awesome childhood for us, and it's not until you become an adult yourself, I think, that you really appreciate the sacrifices they make. So still look up to them. They still support us. Even at 37, it's mum's table's still pretty good to sit at. So yeah, that's undoubtedly like the people I look up to the most. But again, it's I've got a couple of teachers in particular, some that I'm fortunate enough to still be connected with, like look up to people like that. But then in saying that, some of the most inspiring people are just the people you see every day who are just doing things. And the sporting community's got so many examples of that. People have volunteered for most of their lives. Those people are who I look up to the most, I think.
That's so cool. Okay, so tell me about your childhood. Yes.
Yeah, so again, childhood, so 2 siblings, younger brother, younger sister. Younger brother's only a couple of years younger than me, so that bred a hugely competitive thing in our house. We would find a game out of anything, wouldn't matter, and usually Dad had to sort out a few scraps because we couldn't agree on who broke what rule. So lots of that. So real nice times with family. We lived out at Edgecombe for a little bit, but Mum and Dad built in Coastlands back in the mid-'80s when there was only about 10 or 12 houses there. So lots of that. My grandfather lived just down the road here, so I used to wander into Kopeopeo quite a bit, to get milk or whatever, so childhood was pretty normal, to be fair, nothing too exciting. Just growing up around, good people and that, and kicking a ball or whatever it was good fun.
That's cool. So, if you grew up in different circumstances, do you think that did you think that your childhood could have been altered at a good or bad stage?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think, yeah, I mean, we always look back in retrospect and think of things that, even that weren't in our control, so we might go, oh, I wish we didn't live out of town, or I wish we had more money. That's the one we always wish, I don't know. It's a hard one because I think I was pretty fortunate, these people have much tougher upbringings than I did. So it's hard to do that, I think. I loved so much of my childhood, and so it's hard to think about things I would change. I guess, having knowledge you have as an adult, I think maybe you'd change a few ways that you approach things. Certainly in those teenage years, maybe you're a little naive at that age. So so maybe just those things. But no, I think it's a bit hard for me to imagine too much else because I really enjoyed my upbringing, and I think it was a great building block to give me, the confidence to do things like this.
That's cool. Okay, so what were your goals and aspirations when you were younger, and how did you achieve them?
I saw this question and I said there was one there, if you didn't achieve them. So when I played hockey as a kid, still playing now, not as quickly as I used to, but so I wanted to represent my country. That was the plan. But I think leaving town and going to the city, I found out maybe I just wasn't that good. So I still enjoyed it and still enjoy it today. So that was my goal. I've always kicked around the idea of being a teacher, and that's still very much an option, still young enough to crank the brain back into gear and do some studies. So, but I think, one goal was certainly as I got older just to raise a family and contribute to the community that way by making your own children contributors, So, so far my 5-year-old is doing his bit. So, just continue to do that. So I guess I haven't achieved that goal yet, but working on it, yeah.
That's so cool. All right, so another question. Who are the youth of Kopeopeo?
Yeah, so that's a real hard one. I think when I drive past, I drive through here, I still see kids kicking around, much like we did. It's not really any different. You kind of, as an adult, I think you're a bit more sceptical and you go, what are those kids up to? But then you kind of think and you're like, I think we might have done a bit of that, So I don't think they're hugely different from when I was a youth. Obviously different things like phones, you had to walk to your mate's house. I mean, if you wanted to talk to them or something like that. But I don't think they're any different. I think they both have more opportunities and less, if that makes any sense. It's easier to reach things and those kind of things, but maybe the opportunities aren't as good as they used to be. So I don't think they're too different, but then I think they have some certainly different challenges than we did. Yeah. Awesome
response. Alright, so what do you think it's like to be a young person in Kopeopeo?
I think it's the same as what it's like to be a young person anywhere. You've got all of the stuff in front of you, and I think sometimes there's a lot of pressure on, certainly in that 15 to 18 age, I guess, to make decisions that are quite a big deal for your adult life, and that's hard, man, because you have so few answers at that age. I have so few answers at this age, to be fair, but that's really hard. So I think it's, if I was a youth now, I would be excited, but also reluctant to jump in too much, because there is a lot out there, and there's a lot of things to really sink your teeth into. But sometimes it can be hard to know exactly what the right path is, and we often don't find out what the right path is till we've tread it for a while, So yeah, as in being a youth, I think. Yeah, definitely some challenges for sure.
Okay, that was cool. So, do you recognise the different stereotypes here in Kopeopeo?
I think there's stereotypes, sure. You hear them in conversations, and like you might see, they might think of them as lazy, but we didn't work every day after school when I was a kid. When you're an adult, you think you did, but you didn't, So I think there's that, I think, there's all these lazy kids just hanging around, but. They're just being part of the culture. You still see, one of the cool things you see when you drive through King Street here, you still see people just having a kōrero on the side of the road. You might see them stop and just yarn, and they might see each other every day, or they might not have seen each other for years, but it doesn't seem to matter. You can see a connection there, and I think in the youth they're not as outgoing, maybe, but the connections then, I think that's, any community has got to thrive on those connections. So even if that is the same kids going to the shop and the shopkeeper knowing them, and they have a bit of a joke or something, those connections are just absolutely vital to any community to flourish and have an identity.
That's really really cool. Alright, so what is it like to be a person your age in Kopeopeo?
So a bit different, yeah. So now kind of, time restraints with work and kids and things. So really the only time I'm here is to buy something. So it's usually driven by food, to be fair. So that's, it's a bit hard. I still like to drive through here. We drive through when we get in there, and it's always cool to still drive through places that were part of your childhood. But yeah, largely just driven by, unfortunately, kind of boring things like getting milk or bread or, nothing too much more. Yeah.
Okay, so that's cool. So do you think the council could improve the situation of Kopeopeo?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the council can improve a lot of things, right? I mean, that's what they're there for. The council's there to help improve the community. It's hard to have all of the answers for that kind of thing, but I think so. I think what needs to come before answers or fixes is really to understand problems. So for me, a huge thing for this is listening. I think it's hard to put yourself in a position as a councillor and to sit at a table and say, this is what our town needs, if you haven't learned to listen to what your town is saying. So that's a real big thing for me, and that obviously includes the youth, anyone that is a part of this town, even if they're not voters, even if they're too young to vote. I think just understanding and listening is just such a big thing. So I think that's why it is important to be in places like Kopeopeo and have those conversations, So I think listening is just such a big thing. In terms of fixing problems, that's the next part of that step. And again, I certainly don't have all those answers. And one thing I've said a few times in my campaign is that this is a massive learning thing for me. I'm relatively young as a councillor, so learning those kind of things are exciting as well. And even aside from becoming a councillor, if learning those things makes me a better contributor to the community, then that's a win for me.
That's awesome. Alrighty, so what do people say about Kopeopeo, and what do you say about Kopeopeo?
It's the same thing. I think there's still some of those stereotypes around, but it's like the little bro of town. It's like, I guess that's still there, which I think is a good and a bad thing. I think it's got that cool little village mentality. You'll get some people who will never ever venture into town, and some people who will never ever venture here. So I think that's cool, because again, that's just part of the different identities that we have in the town. Some people like Pack and Save, some people like New World. That might be all it is. So I think people still say things about Kope that possibly untrue and just that kind of thing. And they possibly haven't been there for a while. But I think at the end of the day, it's a very, very important part of the identity of Whakatāne. And so I think, what I would say about Kope is that very thing. It's another place where we have different identities in town, just like we do in town. So and that just has to come into that big melting pot. And I think part of the important thing about that is those identities all come together with different ideas, and that's why I think on council particularly is important to have different people in that council, because you can't rely on one type of person to come up with all the ideas.
That's so cool. So going back to Kopeopeo, do you think that the council could break the stereotypes between the Strand and Kopeopeo, and how some of them wouldn't venture, and then how people wouldn't venture down here as well? Do you think that the council could break that?
That would be a challenge, obviously, because people like what they're comfortable with, right? We like that pair of shoes we always chuck on that still looks a bit rubbish, but we like them because they're comfortable and they do the job. So that's hard, but I don't see why not. I mean, there's things here that you can't get in town, and vice versa. You've got the best sports fields in town just up the road there. Well, they don't have those in the middle of town. So certainly there's ways. So I think maybe things around big events we have there. We have things like the light party and Christmas in the park. So I think maybe there's some opportunities to get people to come here after those, before them. Again, that takes a whole lot of things, with businesses and certainly maybe council getting involved, different groups. So I think there can be things done there. It just comes back to relationships for me. So it's just getting the different types of people at a table and having a kōrero and going, how can we make things better for everybody? How can we listen to each other and find new ways to do things? Because change is difficult, and certainly in our little town where we're nice and comfortable, that can be hard.
Okay, Okay, so it's cool. So, what is another question? Oh yes. Dang, I completely forgot it. Oh yeah. So, do you think that there should be? Oh wait. Oh my god. Oh. Oh my god. Oh yeah. So, have you been into Kopeopeo here at night? And have you recognised the different stereotypes here? Like, do you know what I mean?
No, like I say, it's the only time I really stop in here without driving through it is to get bread or milk. So generally in the morning, or on the way home. No, I can't say I have. But again, I think if there's things there that need addressing, it's just a matter of listening. So that's talking to the people that are here every day, shopkeepers, patrons, people, there's heaps of opportunities to listen to people. I think, there's all kinds of things that people frequent, and I think it's just a matter of making yourself available to listen to those things, because like I said before, you have to do that first. There's no problem, there's no point a council sitting down going, let's fix Kope, if we don't even know what we're supposed to be fixing, if we're a council. So I think certainly that needs, if that needs addressing, then the listening has to come first. Yeah, and making yourselves available to listen. It's all very well to say I want to listen, but then they can't get to you. That's difficult. Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, so what do youth? So what do you think the young people of our area want our decision makers to know about them?
That's a real tricky one. I think being heard is cool. Like, being heard is great. We all love to be heard, especially if we're passionate about something, or if we believe that we're heading in the right direction with something. So we want to be. So I would say that the thing I believe they'd want to know is that they do have the ear of someone in council. And that could be a councillor, could be a staff, whatever it is. So I think that's what they would want the most, to know that, hey, I've got an idea. Even if they're a young person who, if they've got an idea, we want them to feel like they can, send an email or make a phone call or send a text or post a Facebook post. And I think they would want to feel like they were being heard and being given an opportunity to have, put their stamp on the community. Because at the end of the day, those people, those young people, they're the ones that are going to be voters and councillors and everything else in town that we're going to be relying on to keep the town flourishing.
Wow, that's so cool. Okay, so what do you think our young people feel should be important onto our decision making?
I won't harp on listening too much more, but again, I still think it's an important thing. I guess they want opportunity, right? And that comes in so many forms, whether it be a job, or it might just be, hey, it might be a student who over the summer's got a bit of an idea. They want to make a bit of coin over summer, so it's just, can we do anything to help them? It might be around, they might want to sell something, in a public place. Is there something we can do to help encourage kids to have a little mini business or something? I think there's opportunities huge. So, and again, so that could be sport, it could be art, it could be anything. So I definitely think providing them with opportunity would be a big one in my mind here.
Okay, so that's cool. So, do you think it's important for everyone to vote?
Of course it is, yeah. It's so important. And I know we've all done enough complaining, around coffee tables or wherever. So I think it is important to vote. I think there's a couple of things on voting. We know that voter turnout's not that great. So one, definitely get out and vote. But I think also when you're voting for councils, to pick a team that you think could do the work. So not just someone who's got a cool name or whatever it might be. It's certainly picking a team that you think can make an impact. I think that's hugely important with voting. So certainly get out and vote, but certainly just consider the team that you think can help keep that community, our engaging, wonderful little town we live in, and keep it moving forward. Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. So I think those are all our questions for today. Thank you so much, Adyn. And yeah, thank you. That was cool.
Thank you.
Okay, that was cool.